everybody. We are live here at Molina Immigration. I am Abigail Molina, founding attorney at Molina Immigration, and we like to say that we melt the fear of ICE because we believe that immigrants make America great. So thanks for stopping by. This is our live at lunch until the elections. I am using this as a way to find community and help to feel like I'm doing something, right? There's so much anxiety right now around the elections. And so I want to just do my part to encourage people to vote, to remind people that there is a candidate for presidency who is very anti-immigration. And I am pro-immigrant. So I am voting for the candidate who is most likely to be pro-immigrant, right? We know that Donald Trump has promised to begin mass deportations for immigrants, and that is definitely not pro-immigrant. It's not pro-economy. It's not pro-human. So I do not support Donald Trump. Obviously, I voted for Harris. And here in Oregon, I don't know if you heard the news, but we vote by mail-in ballot, or you can also drop off your ballot at a ballot box. And never in the history of voting this way have we ever had what happened yesterday, and that was that 3 ballot boxes were bombed. Like a fire was created in these ballot boxes in 3 different ballot drop-off locations in the Portland, Oregon, Vancouver, Washington area. Crazy. This is crazy, you guys. This has never happened before. Like, we have never had to be concerned about interference with the vote, right? And now we have a presidential candidate who is laying the groundwork to say that there is fraud in the election, that there are ballots that should not be counted for Harris. All of these things are going to impact the public sentiment around the elections. It's going to impact how people perceive the election results. We have Elon Musk, the one who created self-driving cars and now robots, saying that we can't trust a voting machine. The irony around that is incredible. So I'm here today to answer any immigration questions you might have. We're going to continue our conversation on what impact these elections will have on immigration. We are going to talk about what things were like under Trump, in case you've forgotten, in case maybe it didn't impact you directly. And I can totally respect that. If someone doesn't have an immigrant family member or a friend or someone close to them, it's not usually something that we think about. I work with immigrants, so I see the impact day in and day out. I saw the mental health impact on immigrants and also on people who serve immigrants. And I just saw something the other day that there is now a website that people can go to know who is pro-immigrant, who are serving immigrants, in order to somehow, I guess, intimidate people who are serving immigrants, potentially put their lives at risk for anyone who is considered an enemy of the state for serving immigrants. Now, how we got here, I wish I could explain that, but the basis of it is fear. The basis of it is hatred. xenophobia, a fear of outsiders, a fear of people coming in, has its basis in obviously just the conversations, not even the conversations, but the hate-filled rhetoric. That's the only way I can describe it, that comes out of Trump's mouth and anyone who supports Trump. So, this week we heard the beautiful island of Puerto Rico, which they are citizens, they can vote. They're not a state. They should be a state, but they are not a state yet. But they are citizens, and their beautiful island was described as a floating island of trash. That was said during a Trump rally. Now you may say, well, that was a comedian saying that, and it wasn't Trump saying it. But Trump authorizes who is at his rallies and what they're saying. And he has said far worse things about immigrants. He has said that they are sending, that countries are sending their worst, that they are sending the criminals, that they're sending the violent. He has said, what else has he said? That these are shithole countries, I think is the term that he used. So, lest we forget that Trump's wife was an immigrant. She was actually an undocumented immigrant at one point. And now the news has broken that Elon Musk was an undocumented immigrant, or worked, not undocumented. I take that back. He worked without authorization. He was here on a student visa, which allows you to work in certain circumstances, but his situation, he basically came here to start a business and used a student visa as a means for doing that. So he eventually switched over to a professional H-1B visa, but there was a period of time where the people that he worked with acknowledge and admit that he was working without permission. So the irony and the hypocrisy, I guess is a better word, shouldn't surprise us, right? These are people who are like, do as I say, not as I do. But it's still sickening, right? And it's still, it's enraging. It makes me angry. So that is why I am here coming live to talk about the elections, to talk about immigration, the impact on immigration, the impact that our policies have on immigration. This beautiful country of immigrants that I love, that I was blessed and fortunate to be born here. I always wonder these arbitrary borders, right, that get drawn, like how it is that I was blessed to be born on this side of that border, and anyone who's on the other side has different rights than I do. So that's a whole nother conversation. But this is a country, the United States of America, that was built and founded on immigrants. And it was founded on freedoms. It was founded on searching for a place where people could be free to practice what religion they want to practice, to not have the government interfere in their personal lives. And so out of that came our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. And for some reason, people would rather see our democracy die. And I don't take that lightly, and I don't say that lightly. But for someone who claims that on day one, President Trump has said that day one, he will be a dictator. And you may say, oh, he doesn't really mean that. Yes, he does mean that. And the 4 years that he was in power, and even since that time, all of the lawsuits and going to the Supreme Court, and now that the Supreme Court has essentially said that whatever he does within the official capacity as president, he will not have to face the consequences for it. It will not be considered illegal. That is very scary. And that is not a democracy. That is giving powers to one branch of our government, where we have three branches, right? I like this meme that's going around. I'm a Christian, right? But there's a meme going around that says there are three branches of government and your church is not one of them. I wholeheartedly agree with that, because unfortunately what we're seeing is a group of individuals, evangelical Christians, who have latched onto President Trump for reasons that I cannot wrap my head around. I think it's mostly because of a pro-life stance, which I can understand that. But if you look at the Republican policies, the only thing that's pro-life about their policies is when the baby is inside the mother. Like, baby's born, they're on their own. The baby is born to immigrants, they're definitely on their own. We are not going to help them. So that's really strange to me that the evangelical church is so fixated on this pro-life, anti-abortion, but willing to accept a party that is very anti-life in general. So I'm going to keep talking here. I know there's people coming in and out. I would love to hear some questions. If you have questions about immigration, I'm going to talk about what I think, what changes I think will happen if Trump comes back. Actually, so just to kind of backtrack for a minute, when Trump took office in 2016, I was shocked that he had won. But at the same time, I thought, well, how much damage can he do in 4 years? And the answer was he did a lot of damage, and a lot of the policies are still having effect now, and still needing to be reversed and undone. But things take time to change. So I was shocked by one of the things I was most shocked about under the Trump administration was the approach to Dreamers and DACA. And the DACA program is still wrapped up in litigation. People who had it before can renew it, but if there's new young people turning 16 that would have been eligible for it, they cannot apply for it. So they have effectively canceled that program for anyone who would want to apply initially. And if you let it expire for more than 1 year, that's considered a new initial application. And so they attacked the DACA program, and that is a population of immigrants that I think, I know statistics show that the majority, more than the majority, would support a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers. You're talking about kids that were brought here by parents that did not make their own, decision. They were brought here. They did not know what they were doing or where they were even going. So as a country, we have, like, statistically, as people have been polled, we have all agreed that these individuals should not suffer for a decision that their parents made. That this group of people that have gone to school here, that have been raised here, that speak more English than their native language, who haven't been back to their home country since they left, that this is a group of people who, more than anyone, deserves a pathway to citizenship. And yet Trump, when he was campaigning for the 2016 election, when he took office, that was the first thing that he went after. And that litigation is still ongoing. We still cannot file initial applications for DACA. So would that change under Harris? I sure hope so. I don't understand why we're into the 4th year of Biden and it still is wrapped up in litigation. We still cannot move forward with that. There's still not a pathway to citizenship, and there's not even work permits now that people can qualify for if it's an initial application. So what would happen to that program if Trump comes back? I think he would go after it again. And we would have all of these hundreds of thousands of under the first go around. So you're talking like hundreds of thousands of young people who have never known a home but here. And suddenly, and now they are, they're, a lot of them are older now. Some of them are early 30s, mid 30s now, because this program has been around since 2012. So you're talking about people who are now married, people who have been working here, people who have U.S. citizen children. And I hear all the time, like, well, if they have U.S. citizen children and they're married to a U.S. citizen, why don't they just get their green card? Why do they need DACA? That would take a much longer time than we have today to explain. But the reality is that there are very complicated immigration laws and very cruel consequences for minor infractions. So I'm not just talking about criminal issues. I'm also talking about, like, if people leave the country for different reasons and come back, depending on how they entered. It is not always possible for people to get a green card, even if they have a U.S. citizen spouse. So people who say, like, go back home and do it the right way, get in line, don't understand the complexities of immigration law, do not understand how the system works. Like, I just want to say, like, you don't understand how any of this works. That's not how any of this works. And the bill that Trump killed during this administration, during the Biden administration, the comprehensive immigration reform that had bipartisan support. So both Republican and Democrats supported this bill. It was like at the final point of voting on it, and Trump said, nope, I don't want this to pass because this is a problem that I need to still have ongoing. I don't want this problem solved because I need to have it in order to talk about it during campaigning. And that killed that bill. So he made some phone calls, and key people in Congress chose not to vote for it. And so that bill was killed. So, will we have another bill if Harris takes office? I don't know. But I think that, so here's the deal. Like, I don't know that Harris is going to be great for immigration. And I'm not going to, come on here and say vote for Harris because we're going to have immigration reform, because it's more complicated than that. The president only has certain powers and needs the Congress to support whatever changes that they're going to be encouraging. So I can't just come on here and say vote for Harris and we're going to have immigration reform, but I can 100% with certainty come on here and say if you vote for Trump, we're going to have chaos. We're going to have, he's promising mass deportation. So let's talk about that for a second. Our courts are already overburdened with cases, and the detention centers are full and they're at capacity. So if you're going to round up and deport millions of people, you're going to have to first build detention centers. That's going to require taxpayer money. And then you're going to have to hire more immigration judges and government attorneys to prosecute these cases, because each person under the Constitution has a right to due process in court. And so where's all this money coming from? And the logistics of it, it's not logical. It would not work, but they would try, right? And the mass hysteria and the fear resulting, just imagine, put yourself in the shoes of the spouse. of an immigrant, an undocumented immigrant, and you've already talked with multiple immigration attorneys, and they have all told you that because of XYZ situation in your case, you cannot, there's nothing you can do. Like, you would be willing to spend thousands of dollars to fix your situation, but there is literally nothing that can be done. So now imagine that you're the spouse of that undocumented person, and Trump takes office again, and now you have to be even like more afraid, because there's nothing that there's already, like, you're already like a sitting duck. There's nothing that can be done. You can't proactively do anything to change your situation, and so you have to just hope that you're not caught, right? Hope that that they have not enough people to go out and round everybody up, and that you can hide out. What kind of life is that? And are we saying that U.S. citizens shouldn't marry someone who is from another country? Are we saying that U.S. citizens should just stay, you know, should I don't, what am I trying to say? I feel like it impacts like our right to marry who we want to marry. And unfortunately, actually, the Supreme Court addressed that this year. Actually, because someone sued the government about a denial for a spousal visa, and the Supreme Court said, yes, you have a right to marry whoever you want to marry, but you actually don't have the right to live with that person in the U.S. Which, to me, I don't understand the logic of that, but we already know what's happened to the Supreme Court once Trump took office. That was another big impact of the Trump administration, was being able to fill the Supreme Court with very right, very conservative, very extreme political, even though judges are not supposed to be political, it's become very politicized. So just, I encourage people who don't have anyone in their lives. If you're scrolling through this and you're watching and you're wondering, like, what's the big deal? If people aren't here with status, they should go home. They don't have a right to be here. It's really much more complicated than that. And I would encourage you just to put yourself in the shoes of someone who is in love or cares about an undocumented person, and what that would feel like on a daily basis, to have the fear of wondering what's going to happen. Am I going to be here tomorrow? How will my spouse handle life without me? Many of these undocumented immigrants, they are the primary bread earners in their home, and they are supporting a spouse and children. And those individuals who are U.S. citizens will now become the responsibility of our government, right? They will no longer have the income, and so they will need food stamps. They will need welfare. And how is that good for our economy? So all of these things that people think, well, immigrants are a burden. Number one, it's not true. The statistics do not show that. The numbers do not show that. And number two, like, if the immigrants are not here, who will become a burden? The U.S. citizens will become a burden. Jose and Tammy, thank you. Thank you for your comment. It's a hard life to be so worried about my husband. The last time Trump was in office, for both my mom and I, we really can't understand until we're in that situation, the impact that families are facing day in and day out, with the inability to quickly, not even just, some people can't resolve their situation at all, but other people are in the process, and it's taking so long that they can't even have a work permit. Sorry, sun's starting to come in, so I'm getting like a ton of light on this side, but they can't even have the ability to work legally or, they're in process, they're doing all the right things, but there is this inability to be able to have legal status, to be able to finish in a timely manner. That was one thing that we saw under the Trump administration, that everything just came to a grinding halt. And then we had COVID, which slowed things down even more. Things are finally now, 4 years later, starting to pick back up. But all of our clients and all immigration clients around the country have been affected by this slowdown. So thank you, Jose and Tammy Alcazar, for that comment. I really appreciate you saying that. We are coming on here live every day around the lunch hour. Sorry, I've got like the sun coming in. Of course, that always happens like this time of day. I love this office. I love the sunlight, but it's not great for videoing. So I apologize for that. We're going to be coming on here every day around the noon lunchtime hour and encouraging people to get out and vote. If you haven't gotten out and vote already, a special point, as I brought up at the beginning of the video, here in Oregon, we vote by mail and drop off ballot boxes. And if you saw the news last night, this is incredible. 3 ballot boxes in the Portland area were bombed, or some kind of like explosive device was put either in them or on them and caused a fire. And so people who put their ballots in there, now they're gonna have to figure out how many were in there, whose were in there. It's just, in my opinion, I'm sure they'll figure out who did it because they have video surveillance of those areas. But meanwhile, while they're trying to figure that out, like how long is it going to take to figure that out? Will those votes be able to be counted? And I'm sure, if I had to guess, it's probably a Trump supporter who did it, because they're ramping up this rhetoric that mail-in ballots are not valid, and even the voting machines aren't valid. Apparently there's no safe way to vote according to Trump, which is ridiculous because this is how we voted for decades, generations, who knows how long. Definitely during my lifetime, this is how we've been voting. And so I say that to say, if you're in Oregon, probably sending it through the mail is going to be safer than dropping it off at a drop-off ballot box. I hate to say that, but I think that's what it's coming down to. Last election 4 years ago, we here locally in Springfield, there were armed citizens monitoring or protecting supposedly the ballot drop-off box. So that was interesting, but now we're having bombings of these ballot drop-off boxes. So vote early, get it mailed in. You don't even have to put postage on it because the state pays for the postage. So please vote. If you haven't voted already, please vote early. Encourage your friends, your families, your neighbors to vote pro-immigrant. Here at Molina Immigration, we believe that immigrants make America great. That is the only MAGA that we allow here at Molina Immigration. I guess you could call it EMAGA. Immigrants can make America great again. They have always made America great, and that is why we serve immigrants here. So thanks for joining me. We'll be coming again live tomorrow around the noon hour. Let's keep the faith. Let's keep the hope. Let's keep reminding people of stories. I think the most powerful thing that we can do to help people who are so anti-immigrant is to remind them that immigrants are human. Immigrants are people. Immigrants have stories, and I think stories are impactful. So let's keep telling those stories, and let's make a difference in our country and in our communities. Thanks so much for joining, and I will talk with you tomorrow. Take care.